Robot Talk is the podcast that sits down with robot enthusiasts from around the world and asks them the questions you always wanted answered. Like, can small companies use robots? And how does that thing work? Hello everyone! Welcome to Robot Talk. I'm your host, Claire Asher, and this week we're returning to the topic of robotics in manufacturing. This time, focusing on how they can help small manufacturing companies operate more efficiently. But first, I'd like to invite you to join the Robot Talk community on Patreon, where I'll be sharing behind-the-scenes updates, and you can chat with me and other Robot Talk listeners. You can also sign up to support the podcast for just £5 a month. And if you do, not only will you get a warm, fuzzy feeling for helping me to keep producing and expanding the podcast, but you'll also get access to exclusive bonus episodes and lots of other cool perks. Check out patreon.com/Claire Asher to find out more. The first 20 Patreon supporters get a free sticker, so don't procrastinate, join today. So, with all that said, let's get on with this week's interview. I recently had a really interesting conversation with Will Kinghorn from Made Smarter about how to increase adoption of new tech by small manufacturers. This week, I'm speaking to Will Kinghorn, an Automation and Robotics Specialist at Made Smarter, who's helping smaller manufacturing companies adopt robotic solutions. Hi Will, wonderful to have you on Robot Talk.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So first of all, can you tell us a bit about Made Smarter and what the organisation is all about?
Yes, so Made Smarter is a UK government-funded programme, and it aims to help manufacturing companies adopt digital technologies. It started as a review by the government about 10 years ago, looking at why the UK doesn't adopt technologies at the same rate other countries do. And the report suggested a focus on 4 areas, so skills, leadership, innovation, and the most critical one was adoption of technologies in small and medium-sized or SME manufacturing businesses. This led to a pilot in the northwest of England around 2019. So that offered specialist advice, grant funding, but also they recognised that the people side of things is a huge part of the project. So you can't just chuck a robot on the shop floor and expect it to be used.
Yeah.
You need to work with the staff and make sure they're comfortable, get their ideas, bring them along for the journey. So we have a focus on workforce development, support and training as well. So that started in the northwest. It's now available in all regions of England, and then as of next year, it will be rolled out into Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland as well. So that's the programme. On a practical level, my job's the kind of automation robotics specialist. So I go into a manufacturing business, talk about how they do, what their ambitions are, what their issues are, and then I suggest appropriate technologies for them, help them find suppliers, help them with grant funding, and work with them all the way through to implementing that technology.
Okay. I guess that's mostly like commercially available technologies, and you're not like bringing stuff directly from universities.
Yes, in majority cases, it is kind of not quite off the shelf, but it's kind of proven technologies just because of the way the companies operate. It's a lot lower risk to get a known technology in rather than something that's cutting edge from universities. That's not to say we haven't done that in the past, but most of the time it is kind of known technologies which have a lower risk for the company.
Yeah, of course. Well, that sounds like a really interesting job, going around and finding out about all these different manufacturing companies.
Yeah, it's a great role. Besides, I was in a large company before this, and I had no idea just the range of manufacturers that operate in the UK. So there's something like hundreds of thousands of SME manufacturers in the UK, and they all do something unique and special. So it's a really interesting role.
Cool. And so what have you found are the biggest barriers to smaller manufacturers implementing robotic technology in their businesses?
So I think the first one is related to that fact that they offer something unique. They're often working with bespoke products. They do something that no one else does. There's a load of creativity and ingenuity in these companies. They often prop up very large companies as well. So automotive or food suppliers that you see, everyday brands, often a small company is propping them up because they're the only company that does what they do. And so they know their kind of field of expertise very well, but they don't often look outside of that field for solutions, and that covers robotics as well. So as an example, if you go into a machining company, they'll know their machines and their lathes inside out because they're familiar with it. And if they need to get more bits out the door, their natural solution would be to go to their machine supplier and say, I need a bigger, faster machine, rather than looking at a robot which could load and unload the machine, for example. So the first one is just awareness of what's available for them, because they know what they know and they don't often stray outside of it. Once you get past that point, there's a kind of perceived cost for robotics. You kind of imagine a massive production line in a car plant and think, well, no, I can't afford that. And you probably can't, but you don't need it. So there's a perceived cost, and then there's perceived skills as well. So you think, well, if I bring a robot in, I need someone to program it, I need to train them up. There's kind of potential barriers there, which is true. But if you're buying an industrial robot, often the supplier would do a lot of the programming for you. And they would train your staff in how to program it and update those programs. So it doesn't just arrive and you kind of, okay, well, let's get started. You've got someone helping you all the way through it. Yes, they're probably the biggest three. Then there's also, they just have other priorities. So they have limited money to invest in things like this. So often we've found that companies start off with software. They'll invest in a software system first because that benefits so much more of the company than a robot helping the production area, for example.
Yeah. And so I've talked to a few other people about manufacturing, particularly this season, because it was voted by the audience as a topic they really wanted to hear more about. So I've been specifically looking for manufacturing people this season, and one comment that was made was that a lot of industrial manufacturing robots are designed to do the same thing over and over and over and over again at scale. And so if you're a smaller business, I'm guessing you don't have quite that same scale that a much bigger manufacturer would, and maybe what you need is a more multi-purpose robot. Am I thinking along the right lines here?
Yes, yeah, you are. That is a very kind of common issue, I suppose. A lot of the companies that we deal with do make bespoke products or have short runs, so it doesn't make sense to invest in a large robot if you're only making 20 or 30 of the same part. Having said that, things like collaborative robots are getting more and more accessible now and are easier to reprogram. So it is more of an attractive solution now than people think it is to bring robotics in to help with certain tasks. And also, if you standardize certain parts of your components, you could use robotics for those individual tasks and allow the workers to focus on the more interesting or the more challenging aspects of the bespoke products. So that's often a common approach as well. Yeah.
So do businesses approach you, or are you ever doing cold calling, hey, have you heard about robots?
Yes. So companies normally sign up with us.
Okay.
And then we have a business assessment where we understand a bit of the background, and then we go and visit them for a 2-hour workshop where we talk around every aspect of the business and walk around the shop floor. And following that, we put together a roadmap for them, which might say, okay, this is how you could use robots on your shop floor or in your warehouse. And here's how to get started.
Okay. So you at least, the people you're working with are kind of already on board. They already know they are interested in this. You're not kind of doing the hard sell.
No, it's not a hard sell. The program's all about technology pull. So it's finding those issues and finding the technologies that's appropriate for them. So a lot of companies don't know what's going to be best for them. So quite a few companies have said, I know I needed to do something, so I've signed up to Made Smarter, and you've come in and kind of made some recommendations, and they'll pick one or two that seem to fit best or address the issue that is biggest for them. So, yeah, sometimes it is a surprise when I've said, well, you could get a robot to do that. I remember one company worked in the dental implants business, and they were looking at 3D printing products. And I said, well, once you've done that, you could get a low-cost robot to load and unload the machine. And the lady there went, oh, wow, we can get robots. I'm going to tell everyone. She got really excited about it because it wasn't something that she was expecting.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people their understanding of what kinds of robots are out there is quite limited. And I think certainly, a lot of people who don't work in robotics or know anything about robotics, it's like you think of humanoids and you think of drones and you think of the big car production line manufacturing robots, and that's kind of it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's very much the picture that we see as well. So our job's to kind of open people's eyes, I suppose, and show what is available.
Yeah. So what robotics technology or group of technologies are you most excited about at the moment?
The thing that most excites me is when I see videos from outside of manufacturing. So things like the Disney robot and how they developed the Spider-Man that flies through the air at the theme parks, or the Boston Dynamics doing backflips and things. They're the things that really kind of go, wow, because I'm not used to seeing those. But from a manufacturing point of view, I think it is just seeing those lower costs, more flexible, easier to program, more accessible kind of robotic systems coming in, and seeing more and more manufacturers adopt them. I think that's the exciting part. The other bit is artificial intelligence has obviously been massive over the last couple of years with large language models. There's a huge potential there for helping with programming or vision systems and things, but I think that's got a long way to go from a safety point of view and a quality point of view. So one of the first robots that I worked on in my last job was a very large polishing robot, and we'd done a load of work with the supplier to develop it. We were in commissioning in the factory, and the robot was in the wrong place. It was a large robot arm with a 1.5 meter polishing head on the end of the on the end of the arm, and I wanted to move it back to its starting position. So I pressed the home button, thinking it would just move slightly back to its start, but it took the shortest route for all the 6 axes, and that meant it spun this 1.5 meter polishing head around and smashed the window of the cell that it was in.
Oh my gosh.
Which everything worked as it should. So the safety system stopped. We could recover it. We replaced the glass. We sat down with the supplier and looked through what went wrong, put fixes in place, updated the risk assessment, did all of that stuff, which is what you kind of expect in the commissioning phase. Obviously, hopefully not that catastrophic, but you do expect things to go wrong and you need to update them. If that was an artificial intelligence module making those decisions, you need to be able to dig into that logic and find out why it did it. At the moment, I don't think we're at that point. So I think it'll be exciting to see how it pans out. There's certainly a benefit there. But I think, yes, from a safety and certainly a quality point of view as well, if you're making things for the aerospace industry, for example, a jet engine's been commissioned with a certain method of manufacture, you need to know that every part being made is being made the same way. So if you've got an AI module making decisions about how fast the robot's moving or how much material it's removing, you need to be able to justify why it's done that and show that part is the same as the one that you tested when you ran the engine for the first time. So if you can't interrogate it and justify it, there's an awful lot of paperwork and justification and certification you need to redo every time that AI module makes a change to the production process.
Yeah.
So while safety and quality are critical, and certainly in the aerospace industry, I think that flows down to a lot of other industries as well, just from the fact that you need to know what that robot is doing with your product to make sure it's going to work properly. So, yeah, I think AI is going to be a very interesting thing, but I think it'll be kind of a slower pace than we've seen for large language models in the commercial sector.
Yeah.
The last area I think is exciting is the decarbonisation and kind of net zero journey, because I think putting automation in and addressing decarbonisation in manufacturing kind of go hand in hand. They offer a lot of benefits which do help companies. I think that's going to be a big focus over the next few years as well.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I guess intuitively you feel like a human worker is less carbon than a machine, but if it's more efficient, then I guess that's not the case necessarily.
Yeah, so if it's more efficient, if it's generating less waste, if it allows that person to create more using the same amount of energy, or we've worked with companies that have brought operations in-house by automating certain processes. So that avoids shipping products miles up the motorway to a supplier and then bringing it all the way back down the motorway back to the production site. So there's a lot of benefits like that automation brings, which also helps with a company's journey to net zero. So yeah, I think they do go hand in hand.
Yeah. So obviously, when you hear about robotics in the news or people talk about it, there's often a lot of concern about robots taking jobs away from humans. And I guess the counter argument to that is that robots kind of work alongside humans, as you've mentioned, and can take over dangerous tasks and free up humans to do jobs that perhaps they're more suited to and that are more interesting and intellectually stimulating. So like, what opportunities do you see for robots to complement rather than replace human workers in manufacturing?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. I think it's worth saying that in every Made Smarter project that's funded automation and robotics, the company's ended up hiring more staff. So we've never had one that's said we're getting rid of a load of people and putting a robot in.
Yeah.
And I think that's reflected in external studies as well. Because the robot will come in and do one or two tasks. It's not going to do every job that a person does.
Yeah.
So going back to the machine shop, if you've got a machine operator, they're not just going to be loading and unloading the machine all day, every day. They're going to be doing other tasks like inspection or a complex assembly, or there might be programming. Bringing a robot in to load the machine, put the kind of raw material in, close the door, press the button. And some of them do that. I quite like if they can't have a data connection, the robot will actually use its gripper to open the door, put the part in, close the door, and then press the start button on the machine, which is quite cool to watch.
Yeah.
So the robot would do that, while the operator, they have more opportunity to do those inspection tasks or do the assembly tasks or do more programming or run more machines. So they're producing more with the same number of people. But often that means you need more people in sales, or you need more people in logistics or elsewhere in the business to support the increase in production.
Yeah.
So that's quite common, and it's similar with welding, for example. So a collaborative robot welding system are pretty much off the shelf now. You could order one and get up and running on your own quite quickly. I'd always recommend getting help from the supplier, but in theory it's possible to order one and do it yourself.
Yeah.
So in that case, like we talked about earlier, having standardized joints that the robot could weld and the skilled welder focus on the more difficult things and the assembly and the other fabrication tasks that the robot can't do, that's where they can kind of work together.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, some of what you've just said is people kind of doing the job they're doing now, but doing the most interesting, most skilled parts of it. Some of what you've just said is kind of maybe losing jobs in one area and creating new jobs in a different area that require a totally different skill set. And obviously you've mentioned like training people how to use robots, but some of that is going to require people to just retrain for another job, right?
Yes. Having said that, in a lot of cases, they were doing parts of that job anyway. So in smaller businesses, it's unusual for you to just have one person doing one job. You're quite often helping out in sales or packing, and then in the afternoon you're kind of doing a bit of assembly or inspection, that kind of stuff. It's common to have more than one task. or job role. So it wouldn't always be the case that if you're running a machine, you get a robot in, okay, now you've got to learn sales.
Yeah.
You'd probably be doing something in addition to the machining job, and you would be expected to do a bit more or learn a bit more about something you're already doing.
Yeah. How do you feel about humanoid robots? I know you said you were excited by the Boston Dynamics stuff, but from a kind of that's cool perspective, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a lot of debate about what place humanoid robots have in our societies and whether, I think some people imagine that they are going to be, all-purpose humanoids working on the factory assembly line or whatever. What are your thoughts about that? Or do you think we should keep humanoids for, social applications?
If a humanoid robot is best suited to the job, then fine. But I think in a lot of cases, a robot designed for a specific job would do the job better. Yeah. So trying to teach a humanoid robot to assemble something accurately or weld something accurately because they've got more range of motion, they've got more things to think about, it's going to be much more difficult to do it accurately every time and repeatably. Whereas buying a robot that's designed to do assembly is going to do the job better and would probably cost an awful lot less.
Yeah.
So yes, while you can imagine a factory or a warehouse with a load of humanoid robots walking around doing things, I think it's unlikely. I think it's more likely that there'll be robots doing specific jobs that they're designed to do rather than just wandering around with people.
Yeah, the factory full of humanoids is definitely more suited to sci-fi, I think, than to reality.
Yes, yeah, certainly at the moment, anyway.
Yeah. Although I'm now imagining is it Atlas, the humanoid from Boston Dynamics?
The Boston Dynamics one.
Yeah, just kind of doing parkour around and then just sneaking in and assembling some products and then totally useless, but it's a nice image.
Yeah, just a bit of entertainment for people while they're working on the assembly line.
Absolutely, yeah. Will, it's been fascinating chatting to you today. I've been talking to Will Kinghorn from Made Smarter. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoy Robot Talk, please share the podcast, subscribe, and leave a review. It really helps boost the podcast, so thanks in advance. And if you've got a question you'd like me to ask one of my future guests, you can contact me on social media at Robot Talk Pod, on Patreon at patreon.com/Claire Asher, or at robottalk.org. I regularly announce upcoming guests on all those platforms, and I'd love to include your questions in my next interview. Next week, I'll be chatting to Emma Hart from Edinburgh Napier University about evolving robots to explore other planets. Until then, I've been Claire Asher, and this has been Robot Talk. Robot Talk is brought to you by the Hamlin Centre, Imperial College London.